this may be the case for some of you also. Spell check is one of my best friends in the world. I still believe that words should be spelled the way they sound, but the linguists don't agree with me, much to my dismay. And so spell check is a good friend of mine. But even growing up, before I had a computer, I had my own live-in spell check, my dad. Before he was a preacher, he was a journalist and an editor. They know their words. So you would think that I might be excited about this gift of a live-in spell check. But I still remember that day that I brought home, the normal package papers that my parents had to look through and sign. And in there was a spelling test that I had made an A on. I mean, come on. But I had misspelled the word sincerely twice. The week before, on a different test, I had also misspelled sincerely. So Dad was willing to let it fly the first time, but the second time, I still remember him sitting me down and saying, "Sincerely is a very important word." What? It's sincerely, Dad. It's just a word. I'm sorry, I misspelled it. He's like, no. He said, you will use sincerely for the rest of your life on important business correspondence, on official documents. You just need to know how to spell it so that you will present yourself well in the future. Well, the future for me at that time was what I was going to take in my lunch the next day or what I was going to wear for school. So really the future business correspondence that I may or may not need to do one day, I didn't really care. So I'm sure I rolled my eyes, which probably didn't help, as he handed me at least a couple of sheets of lined paper and a pen and said, before you go to bed tonight, you will write sincerely 100 times. Seriously? 100, Dad? Like 20 wouldn't be enough? 100. He's like, yes, it's important. So I sat down, and again and again and again, I wrote S-I-N-C-E-R-E-L-Y. That silent E will get you every time. But to this day, I have never misspelled sincerely again. And every time I use it in official business correspondence, I smile and think of my dad, because he was right. Always isn't bad. I mean, again isn't always bad. Though most of us might confess that we lean towards thinking that from time to time. Oh, Mom, do I have to clean my room again? Coach, do we really have to run that drill again? Do we really have to go to work again? Do we really have to pay our taxes again? Sometimes again is downright drudgery. But sometimes again can be celebrated. I mean, after all, we just celebrated Christmas again. We just journeyed to the baby in the manger again. We sang Christmas hymns and heard the Christmas story and had our parties and enjoyed our traditions again. We rang in a new year again. And now maybe it's time to put Christmas away, pack up the boxes, haul them up into the attic until once again next year gingerbread lattes are on the Starbucks chalkboard. Frequently, there is a gift of grace in again, though we might not always know it to be so in the moment. I hope we don't try to pack away the gift of grace at Christmas too quickly in the new year. After all, Christmas itself isn't found in our attics or garages in the month of December. The whole gift and point of Christmas isn't that the baby Jesus is packed away in the manger. The glad tidings of unto us a child is born isn't thrown out with the Christmas cards. The good news of great joy for all people isn't recycled with yesterday's newspaper. The story of God with us doesn't stop when the star in the east does. Hear again the familiar story of the wise men, how they followed the star to Bethlehem, and how the story doesn't end at the manger. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all of Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child. And when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then opening their treasure chest, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. I know some of you might be thinking, Amy, you missed the memo. Christmas is over. It's not December anymore. Why are we still reading Christmas scriptures? It's a fair question, but the last time I checked, I don't think the Bible is exactly a seasonal item that's half off after Christmas. We read these scriptures this time of year, but it doesn't mean their meaning is lost for us for the rest of the year. And in fact, the Sunday nearest January 6th is traditionally considered Epiphany Sunday. It celebrates the greatest aha or epiphany moment the world has ever known, the birth of a newborn king. The word epiphany has Greek origins and originally meant appearance or revelation. The coming of the Christ child was first revealed to the Jewish world through the shepherds, who heard the angelic announcement and ran to the stable. Through the wise men, Christ was revealed to the Gentiles too. Aha, God with us, King of kings, joy to the world for all people. The good news of a new king in town wasn't good news to King Herod's ears. And who were these wise men anyway? These wise men. I mean, could they even be trusted? After all, they were astrologers. I know we sing "We Three Kings" and not "We Three Astrologers," but there's probably good reason for that. But historically, they were astrologers. The Greek word magi, we often hear them called, is translated as wise men or astrologers. Some scholars believe that the Magi may have been associated with the royal courts of Persia, and maybe that's why they were known as kings. But based on the Bible, what can be said with certainty is that they were the ancient equivalent of magicians. Not the David Copperfield or Harry Houdini variety, but more like astrologers, stargazers, people who tried to find out and get the hang of what's going to happen by looking to the stars. They were, you might say, the daily horoscope writers for the Baghdad Gazette. Some people might call them quacks, to be honest. They weren't exactly high society or immensely powerful. Even the Old Testament references astrologers like them as idolatrous deceivers who should be avoided by godly folk. Funny, isn't it, how God calls to them too, and not only calls to them, but uses them so that the world might also experience the grace and the joy of the newborn king. The wise men represent pagans, frankly, not much respected, but they have come to Jerusalem following the light that they have seen. They follow a star not knowing exactly what it was or where it will lead them, and they did so because God told them to, even before they believed in God. Funny, haven't we heard the story of this crazy kind of just follow and go along with it before? Abraham, model of faithfulness, was told to go, not knowing where he was going. Moses was told to go to a promised land he knew not of. And Jesus, now an infant, later in his life would call the disciples, "Come and follow me." To what? To where? Does it matter? Jesus didn't exactly hand out itineraries along the way to the disciples as he called to them. Funny how the Bible is full of crazy people following their hearts to God, even when the roadmap seems less than clear, less than convenient, less than glamorous. And yet lives are never, ever the same as a result. The wise men journeyed to Jesus, a model of faithfulness despite their lackluster lives and careers, some might say. They followed a star not knowing. They didn't know how long the trip would be when they decided to follow it. They didn't know how they would be received in a faraway foreign land. They didn't know how long they would be gone or what the king would look like or when or if they would return home. They followed the light that shone in the darkness. They, like Abraham and Moses and disciples, decided to make the journey, and it was well worth their while. And when they saw the child, they knelt down and gave him gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. They were overwhelmed with joy to find the child. And having experienced the Christ child, they left by a different road, not the same way they came. Maybe they left with a different purpose in life, and I dare say they left with changed hearts. Once again, in this new year, we too have journeyed to the Christ child. But how will we go forward after? By which direction do we return to our normal lives, our normal routines, our normal sanctuary without the greenery? Are our hearts and lives changed? Or was Christmas a day, and now it's gone and packed away? Or will it still be that experience of grace in our lives that God means for it to be? I'm reminded recently of something I'd frankly forgotten about, which will tell you a lot about it. New Coke. Do you all remember? After Diet Coke came out, I know it wasn't always invented. I know that's a shock to some of you, but in Atlanta, we know about Coca-Cola. So I do remember when New Coke came out, and everyone was talking about, oh, the new Coke and the hype and the advertising, and this was going to be so wonderful. No one even remembers New Coke anymore. It was gross. They don't even have it in the Coca-Cola Museum in Atlanta, where they manufactured it. They're done. The hype of New Coke left people a little underwhelmed. And I hope that's not our experience of Christmas and of the new year. But for some of us, it may be. Some of us feel in the aftermath of the holidays that, that was nice. But what happened to the dreams coming true that they promise in the commercials or the movies or the Christmas carols. What about all of that? After all, aren't we supposed to feel some mountaintop experience of love, hope, peace, and joy after Christmas? Aren't we? And if we don't, does that make us a Grinch? I hope not. Sean and I celebrated our first married Christmas this year. And talk about some hype. Lots of people have said, oh, it's your first married Christmas. How wonderful, how special. And it is. But to be honest, it wasn't exactly the picture I had painted in my head. In the 5 minutes of spare time that between the two of us we had, between work and school and sleep and parties and everything that is December, we did manage to put up a borrowed, artificial, almost 3-foot tree that might be reminiscent of Charlie Brown's tree pre-Linus's blanket. We're trying to find a new place to live, and so indeed boxes and packaging are filling our house, but it's not exactly under the tree wrapped up with a bow. And our stockings were hung not by the chimney, but atop the window with care. Why? Well, because that's where the nails were from last year's decorations. And that's where a dog can't get to them to eat them, so that's good. That's good. But don't worry, we left a chair for Santa to stand in so he could find our stockings. And it's been 80 degrees, so dreaming of a white Christmas in front of a fireplace with hot chocolate hasn't so much happened. And, you know, the week before Christmas, I was sick and not exactly running around with joy doing last-minute Christmas errands, and our dog hurt her foot. So our romantic moments have been spent wrestling the dog to rebandage it over and over and over again. And this was my first Christmas not being able to go to my other home for Christmas. And so we decided to do Google video chat with my family and open presents via the computer, which is a great idea, and it worked very well. But Sean is still laughing, and I'm still bruised from my fall as I was trying to show my parents the stockings hung by the window on the webcam, and I tripped over the dog. And so if not magical, it's certainly been a memorable first Christmas. But first Christmas or not, I think all of us have expectations of Christmas and expectations of a new year that are at least slightly glamorous. And maybe in the aftermath of the holidays, we feel a little underwhelmed by all of the hype of the experience. For some of us, we relive old memories more than we make new ones. For some of us, we're still missing the people that were with us in the past. For some of us, financial worries make the season a little less glamorous. And yet, God comes to each of us again, offering us the gift of grace, the gift of love and hope and peace and joy. Don't pack that away. And it's not something you can return to the stores or give away to Goodwill or organize in your closet. It is the gift, and it is given to us at Christmas, but again and again, moment by moment, day by day, year by year. I ran across an old story this week, a story of a conversation between a questioning disciple of his older and wiser mentor. I think he was hoping for some glamorous response and answer to his questions. He said, "Teacher, where should I look for wisdom?" And the wise one answered, "Here." "Well, when will it happen?" the disciple asked. "It's happening right now," the mentor answered. Well, then why don't I experience it? Well, because you do not look. Well, what should I look for? Nothing. Just look. Well, look at what? Look at anything your eyes light on. Well, should I look in a special way? No, the ordinary way will do just fine. But don't I always look the ordinary way? He said, scratching his head. No, you don't. Well, why not? Because to look, you must be here. And you are mostly somewhere else. I think a lot of us are somewhere else a lot of the time, aren't we? Instead of being present in the moment God has given us as a gift, so we can see and experience the gifts of life that God means for us to see and to have. Our mind is here, our body is there, and our spirit, well, do we even think about that? The Magi followed a star they didn't fully understand. They didn't know where it would lead. And when they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. And it didn't stop there. They continued home by another way, another road. And they were present in that moment. And then they were able to see that the light of the world had come. We heard Isaiah remind us and tell us, even command us, arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. For darkness shall cover the earth, and thick darkness the peoples. But the Lord will arise upon you, and his glory will appear over you. Lift up your eyes and look around. After all, the poet tells us Christ plays in 10,000 places. The story of God with us is just beginning. And the story is shared again and again, yesterday, today, tomorrow. Will it be real in your life? Will you let Christmas go with you throughout the year?